Armageddon! It's the Nonepub
Yay.
Game Jam kickoff party, or actually wrap-up party. Woo! Wrap-up party.
Yeah.
And we've got guests. It's not just me that you have to listen to for the next hour-ish. We've got guests. So again, this is the last panel for Nonepub. We're just going to wrap up the Game Jam, talk through some of the submissions we got, what people have worked on for the last day. And we're going to actually have some of those designers speak about what they've been working on and the ideas they had and how they found the challenge this time. So I'm going to start off by introducing myself. I'm Ben Beagle, and I'm known of consequence, and I'm the mayor of Unpub at the same time. So some of this is my fault. Let's go around the horn. Beth.
Hi. Well, first off, it's nice that you have multiple hats on. I am personally a hat person, so like I approve of and encourage all the hattage. My name's Beth, as you probably see on the screen there, and Ben literally just said, I work for Weird Draft Games. I do customer service. I run the help desk and Kickstarter comments and all that fun stuff. But I also love to make games myself, not published kind of games, just small things like this. Game jams are my jam, and I love to participate as much as possible. And that's me. So, yeah. Hi.
And Zoe.
Hey, I'm Zoe, and I'm a game designer. I make a lot of unhinged things like relationship games and stuff like that. And yeah, that's me. I put everything under the fake business knife bunny games.
And you blow everybody's mind in a feedback frenzy.
Yeah.
That was
great. That does.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Hey, I'm Sarah. I also have a fake company called Big Girl Games. I've been around doing this since about 2020. Actually longer, but started Big Girl Games in 2020. And eventually maybe I'll publish something. We'll see. So.
And Jack.
Hi, I'm Jack Rosetree. I do a bunch of design on my own time, and then I work in the industry doing sales for a retail company.
Awesome. Again, so all these designers actually worked through the Game Jam and submitted some designs. So they're going to get a chance to talk about their designs and give comments on everybody else's designs. And then we also have some other designers who weren't able to participate in this panel. We'll talk through their submissions, what they came up with as well. Again, basically 48 hours, a little less than 48 hours from the kickoff to now. So just wanted to reiterate for those who weren't aware, the way we run a game jam here at Unpub and Nonepub is we start with some potential themes. We start with some potential musts, and those are things that have to be in your game. We start with some potential restrictions, and those restrictions are things you can't have in your game. And the idea behind these is that they're training wheels, because if I just say, hey Jack, hey Beth, hey Sarah, hey Zoe, design a game, you go, too much choice, oh no, what do I do? And we don't want that. We want everybody to have some sort of direction. So what those die rolls give you is they give you that direction. And so as Schoon mentioned earlier this morning on the breakfast panel, think of it more like Taskmaster, where how you interpret things is how you interpret them. And that's part of the goal too, is to have fun with it. It's not meant to be a chain around your neck. It's not meant to be something that holds you down. It's meant to be something that gives you direction. So what we came up with was we rolled 3 dice, and for the theme, the game must somehow involve the seasons. For the must-have, the thing that you must have in your game must involve building. And you cannot have written numbers. Those were the restrictions we had. So, I just want to take a minute. Beth, what did you feel about those restrictions? Like, what did you feel about those roles?
My first thought was challenge accepted, actually, especially with not using numbers. I think not using numbers is hysterical because I already have issues where, as you'll pick up from watching this, I talk a lot. So that goes into my rules too. And so I'm already trying to restrict and edit back what I write. And so changing the language of even numbers, especially in a rule book where, even just like this game is 1 to 4 players, you can't say that. So like at one point I wrote in my rule book that you can move up to a number of spaces equal to the number of sides on a triangle. And like I don't suggest anybody, like, if you're looking to publish something, please don't do that. That's not how you word things. Just FYI, because I feel like
I have the number of files in the Babylonian base count.
That's awesome. And I feel like as someone who runs the help desk of Weird Draft Games, I would still get questions about like, I have a triangle that has 4 sides on it. Like, can I move 4 sides versus 3? Like, I don't understand. But I thought it was a great challenge. I do game jams all the time, and I thought this was super fun. So fun that I actually want to take that table of like the 3, 6 numbered things and just like do that again sometime, like just for fun.
It came out of, hey, we're running a game jam. We need to figure out, like, are we just gonna pick random things? And it was like, I've got an idea. And so that's where the exploding die came from too. Somebody's like, we should make an exploding die.
Ooh,
and so the idea is so when I'm going to Origins this year, on the drive out to Origins, and then for that first day, that setup day on Wednesday, we're just gonna have a list that's gonna sit at the registration desk for the Unpub space. And it's just gonna be like, everybody who wants to give a suggestion for one of the 3 categories, throw your suggestion down. Then for Thursday before the game jam, we're gonna whittle them down to the actual 6 that we're going to roll for in each of them.
I fully expected you to say something like you're going to have like 76 of them, so we have to roll like a 76-sided die, and then one of those is going to be like, you need to incorporate a 76-sided die. And in the spirit of this jam, like, have fun with that. And it's how you interpret them, and I love seeing that creative thinking. Sarah, what did you think about the rolls?
I thought it was fun. So I remember, I think it was Zoe in the chat was saying, "Oh, don't let it be solo," and yet I was sitting there going, "Let it be solo, let it be solo." So I felt like it was fun that we had that like tension, even in the chat, going, we're like voting for the things we want to get rolled.
what you think you don't want, like, especially because that first roll for the theme, you don't know what the other 2 are yet. So, just something like there's a thing that just starts to build as you get through the 3 rolls. And so the first one, you're so invested in that you don't even realize how it's going to affect the second one.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you think, Jack?
I like it a lot. My first thought is, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it in the brattiest way possible.
Spoiler alert.
And so my game actually ends up being it involves spoken numbers, and then the rules are just written in a way to kind of highlight that. But the concept of building is actually what kind of like pushed it over the edge into territory that actually made it a real game, and that's where I think I had a lot of fun with it.
What do you think about the die results, Zoe?
I personally really liked the no numbers restriction, no written numbers, because somewhere down the design process, I started resurfacing like notes from like a really old design of mine that had like all these like card effects. And I was like, oh my God, like half of these have numbers on it. Screw it. I'm just going to like clean them out. And like, it was like, wow, this game is actually so much nicer once I removed like half the mechanics. Like,
oh, cool.
So I really like that restriction. To be honest, I wasn't too jazzed with building just because I felt like it was so open-ended. I felt like there's so many ways to interpret it.
That's where the vagaries there on purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's building, and so is it built? And I know these came up in the chat during the kickoff. Does that mean it has to be about building something? We're like, well, it could be in a building. It could be, I threw out. It could be tension building. Like it's how you interpret it is how you win, because you did at the end. You had a thing you did. You participated. We all get a ribbon for participation. One of the few times it's acceptable.
Yeah.
I guess I like the stricter restrictions, and so when it's open-ended, I'm like, oh, this is not holding me back or forcing me to work under like tight constraints.
Yeah.
But
that's part of it, right? If you get too tight in your constraints, then it just gets that person who's, I can't design a game. I could never do this.
That's true.
To be like, see, look, I could never do this. And we don't want it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because everybody designed a game on the playground or in their front yard or in their head when they were 7 or 12 or 37 or 45 or whatever, Like, we've all done that. And so this is just proof that you can.
I think
So-
it would be fun with one more like restriction, like a component restriction or something like that that's more physical.
Yeah, we and so that's where we've had like no dice, no cards. At Origins last year, we rolled no cards. So somebody ended up with a hand of really thin tiles based on their interpretation.
Who was it, Jack?
It was not Jack. It was not Jack. But it was. They asked us, and we're like, "Well, could it be tiles?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, you could have tiles. Could they be really thin tiles you hold in a hand?" I'm like, "Well, Hanabi has tiles that you hold in your hand. So yes, like if you can sell us on it, that how you were creative with it, then you win, and you've done it and you've succeeded.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you've participated, you've succeeded. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. So I've thrown out a couple times. About 48 hours. We had about 48 hours to let you all kind of ruminate on this and work on it. We set up a Google form so that anybody who had a game that they wanted to share could share that with the group. And so it surprised to me, our first submission came through less than 18 hours after the panel ended. Noon yesterday, we had our first submission. And that was from the lovely Jack Rosetree. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share the submission and the rules that Jack sent. And Jack, we'll have you talk through what you come up with here. And then we will let the rest of the panel pass judgment on you. And I
can't wait.
I will simply play
for that.
Flava Flav in this case.
So this is my game. It's currently it requires only really a quantity of components equal to the number of players, and that is dice with a number of sides and pips. Definitely pips, 100% pips. Can't have dice with numbers written on them. Not acceptable. It's called It's Not My Fault You Miscounted the Ducks. And the concept really was about, kind of leaning on that. I can't have written numbers. What if the players are trying to convey numbers to one another without using numbers? And so building on the idea of describing something that under normal circumstances, if somebody has a long enough history or shared experience, you might be able to convey. I feel like I'm going off on just a weird tangent. I don't really know how to describe this, but basically you describe something that is in a painting during a particular season. So I might say ducks in a small pond in winter, trying to get my cohort to pick out a number in their head that they think is accurate. And then they kind of say something back to me similar, which hopefully will be them basically asking me, do you think it's similar to this number? So they might say cows in a field in spring. And then I can nod yes or no. And then I can add another thing if I think it will help the situation by saying, bushes near a farmhouse in summer. And then the player who didn't roll the dice to determine what the secret number is, there's a secret number, by the way. I think I didn't mention that super clearly at the beginning. That person is going to guess what the secret number is based on this exchange. And if they're right, then the game is over, and the amount of time that it took to get a right answer is your score. And if you're wrong, then you play again and you swap roles. And as you can see, player count is a pair. Time is meaningless until the end of the game when it's not. And it takes place in a quantity of rounds.
So I have one quick question before we turn it over, because this isn't really, called out very well. Obviously you mentioned that the time played is your score.
Yes.
Are you going for longest score or shortest score? It doesn't necessarily say which one is best or which one is, proves that you had an optimal play.
I mean, obviously you're just going for the best score.
Yes, that's perfect. That is the answer right there.
Very wise.
I'm sorry, everybody. There's been some technical difficulties. Jack isn't on the panel anymore.
Yeah. Now let's all talk about their game behind their back.
And actually, the reason I said building kind of pushed this over was because in trying to come up with a concept that involved sharing a number without saying the number, you're kind of building a language of math between yourself and the other player. And so you can, there's nothing about like, you can't call back to say like, oh, this round, the number's the same as that previous round. So it's ducks in a small pond in winter, or it's a little bit bigger. So it's ducks in a slightly larger pond in winter. And you can try to like meta game the meta game. And what I really kind of like enjoyed thinking about was if anybody knows a particular episode of Star Trek, there's an issue where they think that the universal translators aren't working because this foreign alien comes on board and they keep saying just absolute nonsense. And what turns out to be the case is that they have their own language that is based entirely on metaphor. And so when they say Darmok and Jalad in Nagra, what they're actually saying is cooperation, but the universal translators just can't handle metaphor and they just lose their minds, and the entire episode is gobbledygook. And so this is where I was like, oh, that could be its own really cool game of building a language that actually could carry over from game to game. I mean, you could play a version of this one day and then the next time you play it, it's not the same game anymore because you have more of a shared language.
So I'm going to turn it over to the rest of our esteemed panel to please pass judgment. I mean, give feedback to Jack.
I just love the idea of like you playing the game. Like you said, you're going to change this language. So I'm just imagining like it's, I rolled a 2. So like this is the number of ducks in a puddle now instead of a pond, or like whatever, or like you get 2 6s and it's like, oh yeah, this is the number of ducks in the Atlantic Ocean now, because of course there can only be 12 there. That's the max number. But I also love that this is basically like Southernism generator, the game, like. Oh yeah, I got the number of ducks in a field in March, like going on right now, like it's like. I love that you have gamified language, and particularly that level of language. This is brilliant, and I love it, and I want to play it right now. Like if I wasn't on this panel right now, I would be playing it. I also hear Angel in the background. She's in the same room with me. She co-designed with me. I hear her cracking up as she reads this and as you're talking about it the whole time. So like, yeah, this is absolutely a success. This was exactly what a Game Jam game should be. 100%. Like you've done it.
Yeah. I'm not this smart, but I will tell you, I want to send this to a friend of mine and play it via text, because I think that would be a really fun test of how well it works. She doesn't live near me anymore, but this is the kind of game we would have like taken up and played all the time at home when we were roommates. So yeah, I can't wait to try it. I want to be one of your play testers.
That's a really cool idea. I could definitely, and that gives you time to like, relish in the quandary of what type of thing in this painting do you think really nails down this specific number?
Yeah, exactly.
You had described your process and design this earlier as like bratty, and I think we should very much normalize bratty game design, because this is great. And I really like the energy of this game, and more games should aspire to be as bratty as this one.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it sounds like you've survived to live another Game Jam.
Yes.
I believe that's what the panel is telling us, and I have to go with their judgment.
Yeah, and for everybody else out there, I want to stress how little I edited this. Like when you're really trying to do a proof of concept, this level of investment, this level of just like throw it out there and see what happens. Totally fine. Like that's the level that you can be at when you're at this stage. It's actually really fun and liberating to have that.
Yes, absolutely agreed.
So, mentioned Schoon earlier. He was talking on the breakfast panel this morning about how he had come up with an idea like while he was cooking pancakes. And he was talking through it with everybody, and you all, that were in the chat, in the design chat, encouraged him to actually put it to paper.
Yeah.
So he's not here. So let's take a minute to go through Schoon's game, which is called The Four Seasons.
This is not in Comic Sans. I'm going to say 2 out of 10.
I think it's back up to 10 out of 10 though, because a number is literally in the title. Like we're talking about
Oh.
bratty
Multiple
design,
numbers
and that is
written
bratty
out
design.
and
Yeah.
numerical in the title. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So so he took some, took what Jack had done and went with, in 4 seasons, a pair of players are going to compete to collect the most memories over the course of a year. In each round, they're going to capture cards from a central tableau using the cards from their hand to score some points. They're going to, so he mentioned on the panel that he was kind of inspired by Casino to do this. So, each round, he's going to shuffle the cards for that season, deal 4 cards to each player and 4 face up in the center. Then on your hand, you're going to choose 1 card from your hand and either lay it down and just place it on the table. You're going to take like with like, where you capture a card by playing an exact match, or you play combinations where you capture a sum of cards by playing a card those 2 add to. So you could play, like, in this case, you could play beach to capture sand and water. Because he really, he was inspired by the fact that Casino, uses the numbers on the cards and the values of the cards and things like that. And he didn't want to have the numbers. So he went to more of like these elements, like sand and water is a beach. And that's where he was going with it. And then you can take any number of cards and combinations with the same card. And you can play a card from your hand that adds a card to the table. This is called building. So building is involved in this game now. You must have the exact card match for the card you built. And if you built a card on the table, you can't lay any cards until you've captured that card. The game is going to end when the last card of autumn is played. So it's interesting that the way the seasons might come out, I guess. The last player is going to, with the captured card, captures all the leftover cards. That's I don't know how that would affect like runaway or scoring, but you're going to score points written on cards. You're going to score for most points, and you're going to score for most some type of cards. And again, he doesn't have a number of points. He has a little gold square. And then, if time permits, play to a set number of points. So, does anybody have thoughts on this game here, where you're building cards into combinations and different things, and throughout using the seasons to kind of lead where what those rounds look like?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. My first thought actually is, as soon as it came to adding cards together, there was a video game, I think it was mobile, but it's not PC too, called Doodle God. But basically the premise of that is you start off with like 4 different things and you combine them and you make new things. And this feels like the reverse of that in a much more thematic way, which I just love that. Like you read that, you may play beach to capture sand and water, and your brain just immediately gets it. Like, you don't have to explain each one. You don't have to break it down. There's not going to be questions of like, well, does this count? It's like just like a game jam. You make it work. If you can explain why, a certain thing works, then it works with the group. I think that's awesome, and I love the theme in this. I think that works really, really well. You touched on the fact that like you didn't know how that was going to work with the runaway leader or whatever, and I feel like, especially in jam games, especially in games where you're just rushing to put something to paper and making an existing thing, like you're going to run into a lot of those issues. And the first time you play it might be terrible, but like it exists now. And as soon as you play that the first time, you'll know and you can fix it. And 5 minutes later, you have something that's infinitely better. And this is that initial point. And I think it's amazing that he took the time to make it. And I'm very glad he did.
The idea isn't to make it perfect.
Exactly.
Right? The idea was to put a thing on paper, and that's, I think, what Scoon did here. He took he was inspired by an existing game and then used the theme to create, a new coat of paint and change it up a little bit. And because it's only a 2-player game, like it says, because you play to a set number of points and you alternate who deals, it could change that so there's not that runaway leader over multiple rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm a big sucker for the stick 2 things together and make a thing. And so this definitely would like push a lot of buttons in my brain. But something that I think, if I understand it right, that I think is really cool here is the concept of playing a card to capture all of the matching cards actually forces players to really like diversify what they're doing. And so like, let's say sand applies to beach and glass, and somebody's already got the beach out, and I could make glass. But then the third player has the opportunity to take both sands. If I do that, I now have a lot of decision making going on, even subdivided within the building element there, which I think is really, really cool. And that's the sort of thing that within the scope of a small, like, filler weight game, I'm all about.
So these are the similar, like, it won't let me scroll, but
Oh, interesting.
we can see. Oh, it'll actually let me scroll
Hey,
there.
Scoon.
Cool.
All right.
The designer actually just joined the chat.
Yep,
too.
I see that. I see that.
Yay.
So
I was
this,
curious.
I wanted to show the types of cards that Scoon made
Mhm.
for this. I don't
Yeah,
know,
no.
that tree's not aligned the same as the others. I gotta,
Oh.
The game's unbalanced. It's broken.
It's not as old.
Oh.
I was gonna say I was really curious about what the cards were going to be exactly, because the idea of like two things like combining into something else, and I was wondering like how subjective are we talking? Like, are we talking sort of like if you were playing with like cards like what's that game called, with all the that dream-like game with all the weird art on the cards,
Like Dixit?
You know,
Dixit,
Dixit,
yeah,
yeah, that's the
Dixit,
one.
yeah.
Like if you had like cards like that and you had to like figure out through lines between them. But like yeah, I think the concept is really interesting.
I'm
I
not-
really
I'm not-
like what
That could be cool.
I'm not sure if you see, but like beach, obviously we talked about beach being sand and water.
yeah,
If we
yeah.
look at water is ice plus sun, but also ice plus time.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and Scoon, you're actually on. So
Yeah, I'm actually on. Sorry if there was some looping there. I had Twitch and StreamYard up at the same time.
oh, you're good.
Yeah. So for anyone who missed the pancake breakfast this morning, so and this may have been shared. I literally just signed on. I'm so sorry for being late, but the inspiration for this comes from an old 52 card game called Casino, with a lot of the same core rules, but it had written numbers. And so this is one of those situations where the game jam itself kind of produced a lot of the inspiration here, because it was the combination between the restriction of not having written numbers. Well, you can't reproduce this game completely perfectly without written numbers, but the building is a core component to this casino game. So, okay, well, what does building look like if you don't have numbers? Well, what if they're more of these abstract concepts? And then with the seasons, okay, well, hey, you've got these sort of emblems of the different seasons, right? Like the beach one, where it's okay, so beach would be these two things. Oh, well, you could also build this thing out of this thing and that thing out of that thing. And I didn't have enough. I put this together in an hour this morning, so I didn't have enough time to put a lot of the concepts on here. And then you could see particularly some of the higher order ones like tree. Oh, hey, maybe those are just straight up worth points. And then either because you match like for like, or because you were able to build one. That'd be cool.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that turned out amazingly. And the fact that you did it in an hour is kind of like, like you ever see a game somebody puts out and like your initial thought is like, this is really cool. I'm jealous as hell. Like, I just feel like being able to do that in an hour, especially after you're like, I was just on stream, I guess I'll put this to paper.
Yeah.
It's not just like, like 3 paragraphs on a Google document. It's like you made the cards, you made it make sense. Like you even captured imagery really well. I think that's amazing. So.
Well, thank you. That is too kind. I should admit that I cheated somewhat. So we have a piece of software that we wrote that produces these PDFs. And so for me, it was like start new type 1 command, start a new project.
Sarah down.
Like, great.
Oh, no.
Quickly generate a whole.
And all I'm drinking is Dr. Pepper. I mean, come on.
Must be an adult Dr. Pepper over there. So what did you think? Scoon, what did you think about the restrictions? What did you think about the way that the die rolls came out?
Oh, I was hoping for no written numbers. So this was another thing that I mentioned on stream this morning, was I think that no written numbers and even further than that, if you can, no text on. I make a lot of card games, so think about this in terms of card games, but particularly for your cards. If you can keep numbers off, text off, this kind of thing, the longer you can push that, the better, because the more you have to work off of things like intuition and position and how these things relate to one another, some symbols, iconography, right? And so when y'all were rolling the dice, what was that Friday night? My hope for the restrictions was no written numbers. Come on, let's go. Let's do this thing that is just really great. I like working in anyway. So it's fun. And the building, I like building in general. Like any way that people interpret building. I like the Tokyo Highway junk art style dexterity games all the way clearly to things like Casino, where there's some, or a game on my shelf is Oceans. You're building an ecosystem across the whole table, right? Any of that sort of construction. That's always great. It's not just people shooting each other.
Yeah. So Spoon, I know you've got 2 blocks at Nonepub. You're bringing this, right?
I suppose I could. I was planning on bringing.
In addition to Project Unicorn.
Oh, sure. Yes, I'll be bringing a new one called Project Unicorn, but also, yeah, I'll bring this. I'll finish up the deck and we'll bring it.
All right. Anybody have feedback or questions for Scoon?
Just that I love it. It happened. I love that it happened. I love that you created into a thing, and now like you've been encouraged to bring it somewhere. Like it. Yeah. This is continuing life, and I'm hoping that like 6 months from now, a year from now, like I don't know what social media you're on or anything, but I hope that maybe even in the Nonepub server or something, like we see like this is a thing that's done now, or like maybe even someone picked it up and published it. Like it's going to be on Target. Like it feels like the kind of thing people could very easily pick up and teach. And it could even be an educational game in addition to just something that's fun. Like I could see kids being like, oh, you know what? Like ice is absolutely, like water plus cold, or, like ice plus time equals, this. So like, I love that. It has so many different purposes. It's simple, yet you just want to play it the second you see it. So like, yeah, this is great.
Thank you. That's very kind.
I just, because of the concepts you went with, I just see like Beth Sobel art, like that style of art.
Yeah.
Really, really art. Yeah. I see the cards back there. I know.
Ooh.
Beth made we used to live in the same town, and she made this deck. This is a 52 card deck. This is the card. This is the deck I keep in my bag and play Casino with. So yes, that would be great.
That's awesome.
Going full circle.
Yeah.
Beth is incredible.
Nice.
Yeah.
So panel, does Spoon get a participant ribbon?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Shots. So the next submission we got, the second submission we got was actually Zoe's. So Zoe, you're gonna go ahead and share your screen because you said you made some updates since you submitted.
Yes.
So I will let you share. I'll bring it in and then.
Okay, let's see. How do I do this? Share screen. There we go. Okay. Let's see. Is it working? There we go. So when I heard the jam details, I actually triple dipped on my jams. I was running a jam myself yesterday. Very poor planning on my part. And I also still had my challenge from Protospiel. So I was like combining seasons and building and no written numbers along with pirate and hand movement and to be determined. That was the theme, to be determined. And not all those things made it into this one, but the concept I was thinking of was like people trying to steal time from each other, like trying to steal seasons from each other. And then like the more I tried to think of a game with time travel, I kept going back to this old time travel design I had, except that one was designed to be multiple people time traveling. But in this one, it's one person time traveling, and each player is that one person at different points in time with different priorities for their life. So the concept is like one player might like have like this priority where they want like wealth over like relationships, and their player might have this where they want like self-expression over relationships, and so the back of the cards hold these like markers that determine like what their life's like priorities or status is at that point in time. And so the players would and then the other side, these cards have like these focus sides where the player decides what they want to focus on like in that moment. So this player might want to shift up so they're going to focus on education, and they'll have like these trackers to keep track of like the events that they're responsible for, and then this would cascade out here, so your wealth would tick up over relationships, and this one would largely stay unaffected. And so now they're getting 1 point for this timeline because they have like one like point in time that matches it, whereas this player is getting 2 because both of these points in time match their card. And that was the general idea. And I was thinking that like players could also swap out the card in their timeline, and then to pay for that, they'd have to, like, anybody that's further down on the timeline would get like a card because they get a chance to respond to the change in the timeline. But yeah, that's like the kind of concept that I had. It's based on an older, much more complicated like project, but I like simplified it and gutted it a lot to make sure there weren't any written numbers.
So when they played the next time, do they have to play on the same spot that they're at, or does their little person marker move to a new location?
So they actually get to control multiple locations. So if this player played another one here, then like they affected both of these points in time, and so like if they changed out, so like if this other player played like a thing here, and they changed this, then they would have to give 2 cards to this person because there's 2 points in time where they get to react to the change that happened in the timeline.
Cool.
Yeah. And the cards are kind of doubling as like your options, but also how much time you have to affect change, because the theming is that like this is all happening during a 7-minute syzygy. So these are like points in time that are all in sync. And then once that 7 minutes passes, then the timeline is locked and they have to be happy with whatever they got.
Oh, cool.
So I have to say, again, it was on the Game Jam panel earlier today. The person who said they have issues with communication has used both words cognizant and syzygy.
Yeah, I was waiting to call that out, actually. Yep.
Right?
So I was cheating, and it was already in my bullet points because I had already seen the what the description that was sent over. So. So, anybody else have questions for Zoe? Feedback?
Yep.
Is this normally a 2-player game, or does this actually expand out to 4?
I was thinking that this would expand out to 4 players. So I have like 4 different tokens, and I also gave them like alternate expressions. And you could
Nice.
So this person could be, they're not explicitly gendered, but like I like the idea of like you could present like somebody's playing as like a pre-transition self and like a post-transition self.
Cool. That's cool.
Take my money, like here.
Yeah, I like this concept a lot. It's got the throwing a pebble in a river kind of energy to it, and it's also like a lot of your games. It's got that, like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to stare at my cards, but I need to just do something, and this game is holding me hostage until I do. And I love it. I love it. But the like ripple effects that it kind of sends down the timeline is mechanized in such an elegant way that I could see this being available like tomorrow, just with what you already have and people really enjoying it. I love anytime I feel like the designer is speaking directly to me, and so like the please imagine a blurry Polaroid just makes my heart flutter, and I love it.
This was a design prototype tip that I picked up from Aya, who used to be active on Break My Game. Aya had like a lot of cards that were like, please imagine a picture of delicious food here. And I was like, that's amazing. Why don't people do this more often? Like, my imagination is way better than a prototype art, but I could.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know I'm a little biased, because I also took part in that same jam, and so I'll cover that a little bit when I'm talking about mine. But I at least want to say that, like, okay, so I made a much more simple game than it did here, but like just from the moment that Zoe was like, I'm gonna do this thing, my brain just like nonstop was like exploding. Like it felt like a Transformer movie, whatever that dude's the director of that. Like, like he's just known for explosion after explosion. That was my brain the whole 4 hours of that jam.
Or like that picture that's like,
yeah, exactly that
The
meme.
emoji.
And again, like Jack said, they pointed out that they love when a game. The Michael Bay Angel pointed out in the chat. Thank you. I love when a game speaks to me, and the gradients on Butterfly and things like that are just like that's
pretty.
like I want to buy that as art, like even without the specific color choices, because it just looks really good. But because of that very specific color choice, like I really want it. Like I want to like put that as a flag outside. Like,
well,
like that would be amazing.
This butterfly is from Noun Project, but I colored it and I added the sand on
Yeah,
it.
that's what I mean. Like it's just it comes off so well on the black. It's just like it reminds me of like when you're kids, like you have like you color something with a black crayon after, like you put like a bunch of colors underneath and then the black crayon and you take something and you scrape it off and it looks like that. It just reminds me of that. It really captures that, and so that kind of gives you that like back in time vibe already. And then like just the idea of you kind of battling with your future and past selves, like, that's not what I care about right now. Like, why are you trying to do this? Like, you already lived this life. Like, let me have my part. Like, it's just really cool. I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You may have used this terminology, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding some of the ramifications here too. I'm a big proponent of kind of the shared language of naming mechanics and these kinds of things. And so for me, the first phrase that I thought of when I was trying to wrap my head around this was area control, right? Like it feels like you've got this, and I want to make sure that that's accurate, right? You've got this timeline and you start from this fixed point. And I like that you have this fixed point with a fixed hierarchy, stack ranking, for lack of a better term. And then as you're playing these interactions, you're kind of changing what are the same three spaces, but you're kind of copying them out and this ripple effect. I'm going to echo that feedback from other folks that I really like that. And like thinking of Boop from Smirk and Daggers came out, I think it was this year or in the past 12 months, I should say. It likewise, right? These ripple effects, and I feel like we're seeing this a lot in these really tight area control games. I think that one, Cats and a Quilt, right? It's really small grid, and it leads to these really interesting sort of folded space problem of just how do I deal with all of these little ripples. And I like that this is a really limited timeline, a really limited amount of space, but there's a lot of this. I think there'll be a lot of interplay back and forth as you go to tweak part of the timeline and then figure out how it ripples through.
Yeah.
That's neat.
I think the only thing, and it may be because I haven't quite grasped the whole concept yet, Zoe, but the only thing I would be concerned about is that the first player doesn't have an undue amount of influence on the timeline.
Yeah, that's like I've play tested a older, more complicated iteration of this before, and that like trying to balance like people who are later on the timeline versus earlier in the timeline is like the thing that I'm most concerned about. But like I've got like 5 other designs that are like higher priority than this.
Yeah.
So I haven't had time to like explore that, much less this one.
One thing this makes me think of, and I don't remember the name of the game off the top of my head, but it's an interior design game where the players are trying to meet like cohesively and achieve all of their goals collectively. And at some point you're just like, I'm happy, and the other player's like, I'm not. And I think you could kind of introduce something like this, like with the timeline. It's like, I'm happy with this timeline, and then the other player's like, I hate this timeline. Let's do something different. And I think that could be really fun. In which case, instead of it being a contentious who's controlling the timeline, it's how do we create the life that we wanted out of the timeline that exists in front of us.
And I try to resist giving direct suggestions, but if that would be helpful, I feel like a couple things are, one might be as you play the card off to the side of a particular snapshot in time, if you pick, particularly if you're playing in the middle, if you can pick which side stays fixed, then that allows you to decide which way the ripples go. And for you, that might be helpful to go left, even if you're playing on the right or vice versa. And the other thing is that sometimes, I'll just encourage you to think a little bit outside of the box. I'm thinking of a game like TAC that acknowledges right from the get-go that there's an advantage playing first or playing second, therefore play it this many times or score it in a different way, right? I feel like there are, I totally echo what Sarah is saying. I think that's going to be a kind of this ongoing challenge for this design as you come back to it.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you, if this is one that you're going to give some space and come back to later, maybe there are alternative solutions that mean, oh, I don't need to solve the balance problem. I just need to make it fun to play twice.
Yeah.
So everybody in agreement? Zoe gets a participation ribbon?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. All right. So next we're gonna share somebody who's not able to join. We're gonna share a Kodak's game. And so share screen window. If I don't say it out loud, it doesn't work right.
let there be share screen. Yes.
Oh no.
Maybe you need to say it louder.
Apparently I do. Oh, that's right, because I'm looking for the wrong name. I'm looking for the name of the game and not the name of the file.
Whoopsies.
That's a thing that happens. All right. So what I really like is, again, so in the survey, what Kodak has given us is that the name of the game is Renewed. It is a card-based party game. For the question, were there any aspects of the restrictions you found enjoyable or difficult? The only response is no written numbers is a pain for scoring. So we're going to go ahead and share this file. And so we're going to see here, Renewed is a game for 2 to 4 players. There's a lot of numbers on this rule. But you're in charge of a TV show. You must build your cast and get them perfectly put together to make the most amazing season of television ever. Do well enough and your show gets renewed for another season. So it looks like we got some season cards, we got some casts, some actors, different types. We're gonna, shuffle some decks, deal players some cards. We're gonna flip over 2 seasons. There's gonna be some demands made by the studio. We have some, things that we're trying to hit. On a player's turn, we can play an actor, fire an actor, or essentially steal an actor. It looks like. Playing an actor is just playing it from your hand in front of you. You can have 5 in place. You can kind of work with a cast a little bit. You can choose an actor and get rid of them. But cards in your fired pile count as negative a point. I mean, I think that's kind of cool because, then nobody wants to work with you if you're constantly firing people, maybe. You can poach, which allows you to choose a card in your hand and have the opponent perform a challenge the card mentions. Then you're going to draw the card, and if they succeed, they get to choose a card from your side. And once a player gets to 8 points, their whole season is renewed, and you're going to discard the old season and start a new one with new demands, and possibly keep playing.
Nice.
I feel like there's a missed opportunity here with the number thing that was written in here, and that is some sort of TV connected iconography, like Emmys for the points, for the positive points, and like the little cut.
Oh, yeah.
The I can't think what it's called, even though I used to work in television. For the losing points. I don't know. I think there could have been a way to do that without putting numbers actually in the rules, but
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds
cool.
kind of fun.
I was just going to say that I love, for one, we were talking about kind of fiddling with, toying with what restrictions and stuff themes mean. And this is seasons, but in a way that is completely different. And also, I love that there are emojis for points. Anyone who has ever interacted with Weird Draft Games customer service knows that they will get 30,000 emojis from me. Professional or not, I don't give a crap. It's going to happen. So I affect, because of the point of not using written numbers for scoring, I kind of want to use those things as a new form of Roman numerals. How many points do you have? I have big grin face plus 2 regular faces plus times this many, that's 25 points, just something like that. And then also I wanted to mention that My game title has 1 exclamation point in it, and I was proud of that because I like exclamation points. This one has 2, so I'm already put ashamed before I can even talk about mine. But I love that. I love that the use of everything here. I think this is awesome sounding, and I love TV, so it already has my attention anyway. So
yeah.
I also, and this would still use numbers, but the thing that I jump to, I mean, there's the obvious ratings that a lot of games like this use as scores, but the other thing you could say is, here's your time slot, and when you get your time slot to the prime time, that's when you get renewed.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So like everybody starts at like 2 a.m. and like trying to work your way back to where anyone's actually going to watch you. Like that's awesome.
In fact, you can have shows starting on opposite ends. Like there's the 2 in the morning show working backwards, and then there's the like 3 in the afternoon show that's working towards 8 p.m.
Yeah. You don't need to. I mean, you wouldn't even need to write the numbers, right? You'd be like lunch hour, dinner hour, news hour, prime.
Boom.
Absolutely.
That's perfect. And those could even just be emojis of their own. Like you've got the sun for like daytime. You've got like sun setting or whatever. Like boom. I guess those aren't emojis, but they're iconography. So
those of us Gen X and older, one would be like after the American anthem time slot. If you're not that old, you might not get the reference.
USA up all night.
I'm really curious about the challenges for poaching and what they entail. Are they like physical challenges, like you have to like perform something out like in the outside of the game, or are we talking like
they're double dare challenges?
Because that might make for a very like
double dare
funny like double dare. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Don't get slimed.
Physical challenge.
Yes.
I want to win the Converse. I hope I win the Converse.
I also feel like there's a lot of like fun space to have like cards that have drama with each other when they're on the same cast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Like,
I totally agree. And something that had come up in a different conversation was like inside jokes and flavor text, where like I feel like this is just prime for flavor text. Kind of hint at things. Like it's an overtly this person, but if you look at the flavor text, it's pretty clear it's supposed to be.
I caught that one.
Esteemed panel, does Kodak get a participation ribbon?
Yes,
absolutely.
All right.
A prime time slot one.
Now we're going to move on to submission number 3. Submission number 3 was submitted at 10:31 a.m. this morning by our esteemed panelist, Sarah. So I'm going to go ahead and share Sarah's file.
All right.
All right. We'll have Sarah discuss.
Yeah.
To save a river.
One of the things that I have tried to do with a lot of my games is to keep them sort of in the environmental space. So I maybe that limits me a little bit, but I'm trying to do stuff that is both hopefully at some point fun to play and also maybe a little educational. And I love Wingspan and all the flavor text, and I've had these ideas since I turned this in of how you could like make some of the flavor text that could go on cards like this part of the game as well. But the basic premise is you have square tiles that you put out and create a river, kind of like in I think Carcassonne has like a river version where you can like create the little river before you start, and then you draw tiles and you sort of build a starting tableau of native plant species, invasive species, and cleared out land that could potentially become one or the other. And then you play it's a cooperative game. You play as a team who is trying to improve the habitat on the river. And funnily enough, I run a nonprofit that's exactly what we do. So I set some rules, and the building part of it is a tableau building game, but also scoring is based on how tall your piles become. With the best type of restoration, the grove of trees or the field of wildflowers being the top level once it has like taken on its own growth, and it's propagating itself, and it is spreading out in the area, that becomes the highest level of restoration you want to reach. And so you accomplish that by playing tiles on top of each other and building up these taller tiles. And so the bad things, there are 2 bad things that can happen. One, as you draw tiles, you're drawing the 3 tiles that are now coming up here. The green ones are the native plants. The brown ones are the invasive species, and then the kind of orangey colored ones are the treatments that you can do. You can treat with like herbicides, you can cut with chainsaws, and then you can clear by moving things out of the way and picking up trash and that type of thing. And the invasive species will be drawn into your hand on the tiles that you draw out of the big stack. But then there are also human interactions, and those will be drawn every time you have a bad roll and at the end of every round. So as you move your little marker down the round tracker, at the end of every round, after every player's had a turn in the round, you're going to take one of those human tiles out of the center and put it on the top of the tallest stack. So people are always doing the most damage. And so at the end, you're going to win if this works out. I haven't play tested it yet, but the win scenario that I foresee is either you have the most native plants or more native plants than all other top tiles combined, or if you don't, the best native plant is at the top of the tallest pile, taller pile than the highest human pile. So I don't know if that'll work or not, but that's what I thought of.
So how many kudzu cards are in the deck?
Oh, I don't know. A lot. There'll be plenty.
Does the deck start with 1 and then have 20?
Yes. That's the expansion. That's the expansion deck. It's just kudzu. Oh, and one thing I did think also was that the number of players will determine how many humans are in that pile, because the more players that are going around, the more you're rolling the dice, and the dice let you kind of move around the rondel. And the thing I didn't point out, and I think this is kind of it's something I'm actually really happy with, because I really thought it through, was there are certain things you can only do at certain times of year. So, for example, where I'm working, we can only use chainsaws between October 15th and April 15th. Oh, wow. And so winter and fall would be the only time that cut card would be allowed to be played. And so if you have that in your hand, but you're not in that season, you can't play that tile. So each season has certain things that can be played. And then I added a winter solstice and a summer solstice for kind of a chance to sort of regroup and have a little extra special thing that you can do when you hit those extremes.
Yeah, I feel like rondels are getting used a lot more now than they did maybe 5 years ago, but still, I love the rondel. I mean, that card play aspect. I noticed that while you were scrolling through, and it's absolutely a brilliant use of that season's theme, I think. And another really tiny thing I just wanted to point out on it from the game jam perspective, all the way at the top of your rules, you put not only which jam it was, but what the theme restriction must have. It's the smallest thing, and I think it's so cool. Like, in case you come back to this in 6 months, why are there no numbers? Why is it one stars? Oh yeah, I couldn't use them.
Oh yeah. Did you see so I have tiles of the Babylonian base count. There's 60 tiles. And then you separate, and then I have there's a place where you draw as many cards as there are seasons on the rondel. So I worked very hard not to put any numbers even in my rules.
So good.
That's awesome. I love how tactile this sounds, and like I feel like there are a lot of games when you play them, when you go to a convention, like they always talk about that, like, you just walk by and you see it and you're like, I need to know more about this. And like, to the extent where you'll actually talk to strangers to ask them about this game. Like,
Yeah.
And I feel like if you were to walk by that and you saw those little stacks of tiles and just how tactile it was, you're like, what is this? And you're like, what are you doing? And like, I just feel like that would gather a crowd almost instantly. Like, that's really cool.
I'm gonna yes and Beth here and say so much so that I'm picturing not 1/8 inch card chipboard type stuff. I'm picturing something more like a 1/4 inch or thicker, right? Like something with some real table presence to it, especially with the simple colors and just a couple icons and maybe a little name. If it just says cut and has a chainsaw, you could push more of the text into the rule book that explains why is a chainsaw part of restoration? Well, here's this whole thing, right? But all it looks like on the board is this thick piece of wood with a chainsaw on it and a couple of season icons. And I feel like you get these nice chunky stacks, and I'm with Beth. Everyone's going, what is that? Why are there people looking at the heights of the stacks like this? Trying to figure out whether or not they're going to win.
Yeah. No, I like that. And if you scroll back down a little to see the cards there that are in that little center thing, I just wanted to point out one other thing because I really like this idea. Exactly what you're saying. Let's take more text off. So the seasons in which you can play, the icons of the seasons are also on the cards, so that you don't have to just if you can't read, you can match the season icon to the season on the rondel.
The two things I want to throw out there is the first is you've got a really elegant end game condition that is so easy to convey to somebody who is walking by a table. It's just like, does the tallest stack have the good thing? You won. Does it not? Then how many other good things do you have? Do you have enough? Good, you won. Like, it's so crazy simple. And then the other thing I want to say is I just tried to mouse over the stream and scroll up. That's how interested I am in reading your rules. And that's a pretty good that's a pretty good sign.
Yep.
Oh, please don't read the rules too carefully.
Zoe.
Oh,
yeah, I could imagine the table presence on this being amazing. Like with the way you're like laying like the river tiles and the stacking. Yeah, like I'm really curious to see this in action, and I'm really impressed by how much like this looks very mature for like this weekend Nonepub. Like, like holy crap, cow.
You're just too.
And another, I mean, I guess on the other end of the spectrum, you mentioned wingspan. I'm thinking about some work that we did back in the Pacific Northwest on invasive species. There's a blackberry species that is invasive and is all over the Pacific Northwest, right? I'm picturing this other end of the spectrum where wingspan, like you've got different actual invasive species on the thing, right? And there's an icon or something that says like this is an invasive species, or it's brown, right? All of them are brown. But wait, what? You're telling me blackberries are an invasive species? Now I want to go learn more. But then people would be surprised to see that one of the green tiles is blackberries too, because it turns out there's a native
Right.
varietal, but it's not.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I'm doing that. This is me at the moment. You could do the little like regional thing as well. Like I put a dandelion, which here where I live is invasive, and yet I follow people in other parts of the country who are like, this isn't invasive here. These are actually edible plants, and we need to encourage them. And Native Americans ate them, and there are all kinds of ways we can do things with them. And I love that idea so much. That is a really cool idea.
Well, and that could be its own variant. So like we joked earlier about the oops all kudzu version of the game. Like you could just tack a little tiny mechanical change depending on the type of invasive species you're dealing with. And maybe some are really easy to cut out and some are not, or some every time that you take one, you take another one, or like things that actually relate to the way that they work, which is one of the things that I think Wingspan is like does that gets people really excited. Is like, oh, there I see the mechanical connection between this weird looking bird and what it does in the game. And I think this could do that very, very easily.
Yeah.
And I think depending, just to keep yes-anding and building here, I feel like there's a version of this that rather than being a single river in a single place with a single set of what is invasive or not, you got something more that represents the different regions.
Yeah.
And in one area, this is an invasive species. In the other one, you flip it over. Actually, it's a native one. And you get into some like a decision you're just going to have to make that you're probably already thinking about. Are players allowed to tell what they have with the other players? And I feel like when you're getting into things like colored tiles and two-sided tiles, there's an amount of information that's just public anyway. But
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be cool. Like I didn't know that about dandelions. That I grew up with them, but I don't realize whether they're invasive or not. It'd be cool to see that relationship on the physical pieces. That I'm sure there are places where English ivy isn't invasive, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and like here, our big problem is salt cedar. It's a tamarisk, and it just creates these like monocultures that just like strangle rivers, basically, is what they do. And yet there are places where there's plenty of water, where they're just a really beautiful kind of shrub in people's yards, and they are very pretty. But man, out here we just hate them. So it's kind of like the kudzu of the Southwest. Well, I love it. Thank you so much. That's really good feedback.
Me too, that's great. Yeah,
Esteemed panel, does Sarah get a participation ribbon?
Oh yeah.
All right. So we're going to move on. So we actually have Thomas is in the chat. So we're actually going to move on to Thomas's game next. And I'm going to present. Share screen. If I don't say it out loud, it doesn't happen.
Like computer.
Yeah, engage. Yes.
All of us going. Oh wait, not me.
Ooh, another screen top game too. Nice.
Right now.
Yes, the screen top version of It's Not My Fault You Miscounted the Ducks will be coming out in 2025.
I mean, a lot of development that needs to happen with that game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So now let's see if this works.
I got to remove the written numbers from all the dice.
Yeah.
All right. So this is Thomas's game, Falling Leaves.
Oh my goodness! Already that first paragraph,
nice.
I love it. You win too.
So good, so good.
Participation trophy already earned.
So we have, a spring and fall game about leaves on and off of trees for more than a pair, but fewer than half a dozen. So that's 2 to 5 ish. 2 to 5 and 7/8 people.
Well, more than a pair would be 3 to 5.
Maybe.
Although, yeah, if you get in the fractions, then we're going to be here all day because there's infinite of those. So, So in spring, each player is going to draw, a trio of spring cards. Place a leaf card face up on one of the tree branches, keeping the piles even each round, and then passes the other cards to the left. And you're going to repeat until all the cards have been played. Then for fall, each player is going to draw a trio of fall cards. On a player's turn, they play a card and then draw a card. Some different cards are going to have some different effects. Rain's going to cause leaf cards to fall off your tree straight down. And each rain symbol on a card looks like it's going to knock off a single leaf. In each rain symbol hits a single branch. You may affect a branch in your neighbor's yard as opposed to yours, it looks like. And a rake is going to pull a leaf card to an adjacent yard space. And you can rake a card over from your neighbor's yard. It's not theft, you're just being neighborly. The wind is going to move a leaf card from any tree to the ground, but it moves spaces to the left or the right based on the symbol. So rain drops it straight down and rain moves it away. And the game's going to end when all the leaves have fallen off the trees. You're going to check your piles, and the pile with the most symbols, leaf symbols wins. In case of a tie, all players are going to win that are tied.
Great.
Can I say the very first thing I thought was that the win condition is reversed. It should be you want the most leaves in your neighbor's yard, like, like, like if you see that bluey one where like they're getting mad about like their trees, palm leaves falling into their yard, and like that's what I was.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we have a pool in our backyard, and yeah, it's super fun. Just like all the stuff that collects in it, like way beyond leaves. But yeah, it's all just lovely.
It's like control your tree, neighbor. Don't let your tree leaves fall in my yard.
Exactly. Neighbors are like, well, it's a gift. There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah.
So, anybody have any questions for Thomas? It looks like, Thomas mentioned, that looking for, thinking more about kids playing with leaves, and that's why you wanted the most leaves, so you could make that pile, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If it's kids would want a big pile of leaves so they could like jump into it. So yeah, I could definitely see that. I can imagine like a take that version for adults.
Yeah. Then you can just reverse it, and then yeah. That's awesome.
And
I do really. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I do really love the visual, like the visuals that I'm like coming up with, trying to imagine how like this game would look. I think it would be very fun, especially for kids.
Does each player have like a little like mat that has tree branches on it? Their own like little play mat kind of thing? Or is it one, like at first I was picturing like this one big tree that everybody puts leaves on, but you have to have your own yard. So
there's a link in the Twitch chat if you want to check it out later. But they did have a board kind of per person, and it had six spaces. So there's 3 up in the tree branches and 3 kind of down on the ground.
Oh, okay.
And I'm picturing. I mentioned in the chat, Thomas, if this isn't right, but I'm picturing the deck. I wasn't able to click through, but the spring cards kind of have a different number of leaves per card. And I'm also picturing some of them are bad. Like if it's just a branch, there's no leaves whatsoever. It's just an empty branch. And I could maybe blow or rake that empty branch over onto your yard to cover up the leaves that are over there versus the leaves that I want to pull behind. I don't know if that's true or not. I was trying to click through and figure that out.
Cool.
I actually imagine that if you have a big enough tree, it kind of like sits in the corner of several houses, and leaves are just falling off that one big tree, and everybody's in the kids version, everybody wants it to fall in their area, but in the adult version, it's like, oh man, like none of us wants to pay to cut down this tree because it's between all 4 of us.
Yeah.
But none of us also wants that tree to just drop all of its leaves in our lawn.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. I love that.
I'm sharing the screen. I'm not sure if you want to present it, but of the screen top version of it, I'm starting to understand better. So like the spring cards that you're drafting are the cards with like the different leaves, and those are the ones that you're going to be putting onto the trees. If I'm understanding this correctly, so you might put them on like
cute,
this, and then the autumn cards that make up your hand are the ones that have like that have like the rain and the wind and stuff. So these are the cards that you're using to like blow the leaves onto like your lawn, or use the rake to take from their tree and stuff, or use the rain to make it fall straight from the branch to the ground. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, to call from the chat, you did clarify that it is a single, a pair, and a trio of leaves. So there's no empty branches. No one is as cruel as I am, but at least you could at least toss a single over there and keep a triple for yourself.
Yeah.
Does everybody, esteemed panel, does Thomas get a participation ribbon?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
Thomas, you're bringing this to Unpub, right?
I do think Thomas maybe went a little overboard on art for this.
Yeah.
But otherwise.
I love this is another one that would be really easy to explain to like literally anybody. There's no words on the cards. It's just iconography. Like if you don't understand that rain knocks leaves down and that wind's gonna blow it around, or that a rake can move it, like I mean, you can grasp that quickly. And I feel like even it's the kind of thing like that adults could have fun with, but at the same time you could play with your kids. And then, like when you're done playing, hey, let's go play outside in some actual leaves. Like just lead to that, or kind of trick your kids, like go rake the leaves up, kids. Thanks. Like, isn't that fun? Go do it. Like, and then you can just sit inside and chill and watch your cat videos on YouTube and whatever else you're gonna do. So yeah.
So we have one last submission. And so to the question, were there any aspects of the restrictions you found enjoyable or difficult? The response is the no written numbers was hysterical, lol, as I did it with the rules too. At one point, movement was up to 3 spaces, so I wrote, you may move a number of spaces equal to or lesser than the number of sides on a triangle. Mm-hmm. Smiling emoji, crooked, smiling emoji, crooked.
I told you that emojis are my thing.
I've also never used the words pair or trio as much as before as I have here, but it was great. So we're now going to present Beth's game, which is called, I gotta look. It's called The Foragers.
The Foragers. That's right.
With emphasis. We're going to start with the most important part.
Now I really want to know. Okay, I really, for a half a second, you made it all the way through with no written numbers, and I really wanted it to be FOUR.
Oh, that would have been it. I actually, I made these cards 1 minute before the deadline. I want to say it was within 90 seconds of the end of the deadline, and I just slapped them together. Angel, luckily, Angel is in the chat there. She designs everything with me. We're actually, Beth and Angel make games with our company and stuff. But I actually called these the other, like the goal cards by mistake, and I had to fix it at the very end. But
so I found it entertaining that the things I got were the rules, and then the card fronts, but also the card backs. And so I wanted to start with the card backs because they're obviously the most important.
Definitely. You cannot have a game without card backs.
So I'm going to actually go ahead and share the actual rules.
Cool, because I don't remember them.
It's been so long.
It has been so long. And we did a panel between now and then we had a game jam yesterday, and just, oh my goodness. Okay, so this game is called, I didn't put an exclamation point on, I hate myself right now. It's The Foragers, with emphasis. I had, okay, so first off, this was made during Zoe's game jam yesterday. It was a 4-hour game jam, live streamed. The theme was TBD, as it pointed out. My TBD on this was literally just the fact that the title wasn't made. And then Angel came up with a cool title and completely ruined everything. So yeah, now the only thing in there says illustration TBD. So it still technically fits TBD. Also during that stream, I joked that TBD could be an abbreviation for anything. And so the Beth design, using my name in the middle of it, boom, done. Yeah, as angels want to do, ruin all my plans by coming up with really cool stuff. So the premise of this game, it's something I've actually wanted to make for like a year and a half now. And it's why I love game jams, because I was like, I'm just going to make this now. I'm going to get over the anxiety over making this thing perfect, and I'm just going to slap it together. The premise is that you play as kids and you're playing in leaf piles, actually, just similar to the last game. This is a Winston draft game. So basically you're setting up the game. And I'm going to use numbers. I apologize. I'm not going to keep saying trio and duo, but basically you have a circle that goes around the 2 decks of cards. You have goal cards, which are basically just what you're picking up to deliver in those spaces. And you have forageable spots. Forageable spots are face down. You start off with 2 in each pile, and there's going to be 3, I think is what I came up with at the end of this. I changed the rules like an hour before we turned it in. But there's 3 between each. So you have basically a wheel with like, you make an upside down Y out of the goals. And then between each of those, there's 1, 2, 3, and then, so on around it. So there's 9 total piles with 2 cards each to start. You each pick a place to start. Of course, I had to come up with probably half my work here was on the how you choose a first player, because that's the most important thing in any game. You can play rock, paper, scissors for it. You can draw cards from the forageables deck until you get unique cards, and then hold a formal debate over which of your forageables is better and why. Or you can just find some dice and roll them, whatever floats your boat. Just make sure that if you do take any cards out of the deck, you have to make sure to put them back, because otherwise the entire game is unbalanced all of a sudden, and it just ruins everything about my life. Thanks very much for that. So you all start in your own space, and each turn the active player is the forager. You are the foragers who are building basically a tree house, or you've already built a tree house and you're decorating it with the cool stuff that you find around the forest. Okay, sorry, I was talking in the back. I thought Angel was talking to me. Anyway, so you're going around picking these things up. Each of the goal cards is going to have I want 4 leaves, or I want a cool stick and a cool rock, and also can you get me an acorn? So each of those has things, and you're collecting them Winston Draft style. For those not familiar with Winston Draft, if I start on, dang it, you're calling me out right now. So if you start on the main space here at the top on one of the goal cards, then you'd move to the first one, and you would pick up that pile, which would currently have 2 cards on it, and you'd look at them. So let's say it's 2 leaves, which are those common cards in there. You'd be like, I don't want this one. You can move to the next space. You place 1 more forageable card in that space face down, which makes it more valuable for the next player who goes over it. And you continue that until either you decide to pick up a stack and you take those cards for yourself that you can turn them in later, or you reach a collections card. The collections card is the term I used for basically the goal cards, the slots for those. When you reach those, you can stop and turn in one of your collections. Like if you have the items required for that, you can turn them in and you get the points on those. Angel actually came up with a great way for that. I was trying to figure out how to do something without numbers, and I was like, well, thumbs up are okay, I guess. And she's like, how about hands? So there's actually in the corner of the goal cards, there's a thing like 1 or 2, 3, 4. She said it was actually really fitting for a game with kids. Yeah, you can see them in the corners in the bottom right, because the card is worth this many. It's this many points that card is worth. So the goal is basically you're trying to get a dozen, because that's not a number, points before anyone else does. The other option, though, when you reach one of these spaces, is that instead of turning it in, you can place one of your own cards, anything that you want. So if you're trying to turn in for a leaf, a stick, and a pine cone there, and you don't have any of those things, you can throw a rock in there. Who cares? And the other players won't be able to use that, but if they turn that goal in, they will get that item when they do it. So you're kind of adding value to these things. And then those are the forageable items. It's literally just the card, the little icon in the corner again. I am a very wordy person, if you're not picking that up, and I figure I might as well be wordy with pictures too. So let's throw the same picture on there 3 times. And there you go. I used Nandeck to make the cards, so I literally just made these in Canva. Canva is awesome. I made the individual pictures there, used imagery from Canva, and then just literally used Nandeck to generate the PDF files for these, and also multiples of them. This is completely unplay tested. Like I said, I changed it without even playing it about an hour before this started, because originally it was there were 4 goal spots, basically making a cross out of them around the middle, and there were more forageable spots. And I'm like, okay, so if we did that, I would need 3,000 cards to make this work with the Winston Draft game, and so we're going to reduce that a little bit. But again, it's something I've been meaning to make. Zoe's Discord actually has a place where we can throw notes about games we have and stuff. And so there's actual record of how long ago it was that I came up with this idea, and just anxiety over I'm not going to get it right. What am I going to do with this? I don't know, kept me from ever making it. And then even during the game jam, I was like, I want to do this. It's seasons, it's a season at least, whatever. But and then Angel was the goal is to, collect cool stuff for the treehouse, because you can decorate it, or because originally it was actually you're building it, but I didn't really know how you'd build the treehouse with leaves. So we decided to make it just decorating, because who doesn't want a bunch of wet leaves in their rooms and stuff? I mean, I remember it as a kid. I used to do that all the time. I'd pick stuff up and collect it. There really were there were the cool rocks that you'd pick up and you'd throw in your pocket, and so I just really wanted to capture that. And
we absolutely have had to limit our children to a box. This is your nature box. If it can't fit, it's not coming in this house, and you gotta take some out.
That's awesome. I love it. That's perfect. We should actually if I do when I work on it more, I'll have to make a little thing that holds the cards and it looks like a box then. So that way, in fact, that would be a really cool mechanic
Like
if you can only
shoebox,
hold certain
right? With,
amount.
like,
Yeah.
kid writing my nature box. Shoebox.
Yeah, and then that would actually be a great mechanic too. So you're not picking up like a instant draft game. A lot of times you get that this pile has 10 things in it. Like, cool, I'm gonna have all the things now, and I never need to stop again. Now you're limited. Like, okay, cool, you can fit
Mhm.
6 things in that box, and then you have to drop the rest. So like now suddenly that other space has a bunch of stuff on it, and people will be racing for all that stuff too. I like that a lot. That's a cool idea.
I really like the you can cheat your way around the goals because kids don't worry about the rules. It's very much like, I know we all agreed to having a rock here, but I found a really cool leaf, and I'm sorry, but you're wrong. And I love the concept of you can break that rule, but you're potentially setting somebody else up to get some free resources out of it. And if nobody fulfills that goal by the end of the round, it's cost you nothing, which is a really cool kind of tension that you can build in the way that you complete these things, because I could just throw whatever wherever.
Yeah.
And if I do it quick enough, I may hit the end game goal or whatever before anybody else does. But if I don't, then I'm just giving tons of resources to whoever else is behind me. And I that's just such a cool concept.
It's funny too, because that actually isn't what I designed at all, but I love that that's a game. The premise was that you just literally leave it behind, and then whoever eventually fulfills that goal does it. But I love that. I'm gonna figure out a way to make that work, because I think that's so much more fun. I remember when I was a kid, I was playing chess with somebody, and I was really good at chess. I just chess master Beth. Nobody beats me. This little kid would instead of playing it, he just pick up a piece and he just dude, I win. And it's no, you don't. That's not how chess works. You're playing it wrong. That's not how this works at all. And you just get in this debate, and this kid's I don't care. Let's play again. I win again. And that's just how it worked. So I really love that. Even if at the very least that should totally be a variant of my rock is so much cooler than your leaves. Whatever.
We actually have a rule similar to that, Beth. Whenever a game in my family gets too long and everybody's kind of just done playing, you can call for a vote of everybody but Chuck. Chuck being my little brother wins. And if you get a majority, then everybody but Chuck wins.
Does Chuck actually get to vote or no?
Yes.
Okay, so there's at least one vote. Unless Chuck's so over it that Chuck's yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's do that.
We've used it in Risk. We've used it in Monopoly. We used it in a bunch of games growing up.
I'm gonna bounce an idea around, which gonna again and the I didn't quite follow but loved the cheating idea. Are the challenges dealt into the middle of the table?
There are actually specific spots around. So you start at 1. So if we're looking at a clock here, 1 o'clock would be a goal, which could be one of the places you start from. And then 2, 3 has 3 spaces of forageable items in it. And then 3 o'clock, I guess, would be, no, I'm sorry, I changed that. So it's a Y. So up at the top here, you have a goal that you can stop on and turn in. And then from these next 3 spaces, they're all things you can pick up until you reach, well, I can't go, my hands don't work that way. So down here would be another one, and then over here would be another one, and you have things you can pick up between those 3 spots.
You're mentioning this thematically, the players are the kids too. And if there was some, however it winds up being the case, if there's some association between the challenge cards that go out and the players, then I like that aesthetic of, well, I didn't find you a stick, but here you can have this sweet rock instead, right? And if this is your challenge, then all the decorations I actually found for the treehouse, they go into the treehouse in the middle. But that rock that I'm cheating with, all that goes to you. That was your challenge. So I got you this cool rock instead of the leaf that was supposed to be in the treehouse.
Oh, that's fun. I really like that. And it would also mean you could maybe, even depending on number of players, you'd have different spots on the board. And so each player would have their goal in front of them. And if you could convince them, almost like we just started playing Catan for the first time, I'll admit to that. But the trading thing. Yeah, Angel says getting Catan. Exactly. I'll take this goal if you give me or I'll let you have this if you give me this extra stuff.
And kids love that kind of, we as big sophisticated grown-up gamers have decided that king making isn't cool, but kids love it. They're all about it. Like, nope. It's not even king making. It's just, no, you have cooties. I'm not trading. I'm gonna give you that rock. I'm gonna go with you instead. Like, what? Okay. Like, just the association might mean they do certain challenges and not others.
I love that, and that makes it so much more thematic. I think that's amazing because I really wanted those spots to represent basically different kids that wanted different things. And if you are those kids, like you're trying to find stuff for other people, but you want things too. Like so, that's
the easiest association is you just deal the challenges out. But I feel like there might be some other either more thematic or balanced way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to trying that out. That's amazing. I love that.
I forget. How do you move around to the different piles, or do you move around?
Okay. Yeah, you move around. I don't even think I put it in the rules, but no, I did. Actually, I was proud of what I did at that. So let me pull it up here. I know this is really entertaining. Congratulations on me reading text. I'm not seeing it exactly because I can't read and talk at the same time. But basically, the premise was that you pick either like a meeple, or you pick a pawn, or you pick even something you found yourself to use as like your player marker. And then, there we go. Thank you for highlighting it. Starting at the forager and moving clockwise around the table, each player places a token that represents themselves, a meeple, a coin, something they forage themselves, etc., on one of the collections cards around the table. Multiple players may choose the same card. So you can start in the same place, but basically, so like if you were on one space, you immediately move automatically. There's no dice or anything. You just move to the next space. When you do so, if it's a foraging space, you look at those cards, and then if you want to keep them, you keep them. If you don't, you put them back down. You add one more card from the foraging deck, and then you move to the next one. Until either you reach a goal space, like the collection space, to either turn one in or continue moving by dropping one of your own things, or by taking the cards in a space.
Yeah, this sounds very thematically congruent to like the way my child will go for a walk and then like stop along the way and find like a leaf or a rock and then ask me to put it in my purse, and when I get home I have a purse full of like rubbish.
I love that you almost said garbage and you took it back. Like, no, this isn't garbage.
Not garbage to her. I'm sorry.
No. Zoe was going to say ground findings.
That's what it was. I misunderstood. And Angel said in the chat here too, the extra moves you put a card from your hand down to check another stack. So yeah, exactly. We work for Weird Draft Games, so shout out here. Studies in Sorcery is a game where there are 3 different grave piles, and you always start on the left one. It's what's called the Winston draft. So you start in the left one, you pick it up, you look at it, you can either take those things and then you're just done, or you can move to the next one. And each time you move to the next one, the one before it gets a little more valuable. You put a random card on top of it from a deck. So like if we just really don't care about those first ones and Angela are going back and forth like 6-7 turns later, it's gonna be like 10 cards there. And that alone might make it really valuable. That one does have extra things though, where like, actually, your solution to this solves the issue for me, because in a game like that, you can sell those items for money, which then can be used for other things. This one, I guess you could just overwhelm somebody with like, I know you wanted 3 leaves, but you know what? How about 2 leaves, a stick, an acorn, 3 of these other things, and they're like, yeah, I'll take that. Cool. And so then like, they get to keep whatever extra of it. But like,
I mean, if you've ever seen a kid give something to another kid, it's not really an option. It's just like, I found this rock here, and you're like, oh, thanks. I guess awesome. This is mine now.
100%.
Yeah, my precious. Yes. Yeah. But no, that's awesome. I was really excited about the theme of this one, but there was so much I had not nailed down yet, and just talking this out, really, I feel like that's my favorite thing about game jams. We talked about that a little bit earlier when we did our game jam panel, is the community that comes of it and the comments you get afterward. And it's just like, there are so many people that just think of things you wouldn't think of. Like, it's just like there was a game Angel and I made a while back. It was for Let 'em Dare Jam. Where you had to, it was 10 seconds. Every 10 seconds, you had to do something. That was the theme, every 10 seconds. So we were playing this game, and it was every turn was 10 seconds, but the game felt like it took like forever and ever and ever. It was a push your luck movement thing. And Angel just one day, as we were playtesting it, was like, what if you play at the same time? And so you all use these dice. Maybe the current player gets, you know, 1 or 2 more dice than the other ones. There's a game called Dungeons, Dice, and Danger that we have that does something similar. Like the active player gets 1 extra. There's a black die, and they don't have access to that. And it just like that game felt like it was 5 minutes all of a sudden. It just made a huge difference. And so just things like these suggestions add so much. Like, and it took me 0 effort. So thank you. Like.
So, what does everybody think, esteemed panel? Does Beth get a participation ribbon?
Yeah.
So, all right. So
I feel like I need to give participation trophies for the participation in me receiving my participation trophy there.
All right. So it's about time we wrap up. So I want to go around. We'll go around the horn again. Let everybody know where they can find you to talk to you. Maybe they've got they want to follow what you're doing, follow what's come out of this, and also some advice for somebody who maybe is wary about being at a game jam, or I could never design, have some of those thoughts. What advice would you give them in 1 or 2 lines?
Are we going in the same order?
We're gonna start with Scoon and come around the other way this time.
Okay, cool. I get the show.
Start with me. So I'm Scoonology everywhere. My wife and I make games under Legacy of Play, but we also advise Unpub. And so I'd say for a lot of these, either hello@legacyofplay.com or info@unpub.net are great places to get in touch with us. And as far as advice is concerned, especially if at the end of this game jam, the end of this weekend, you're still feeling like you can't make a game, then I think, especially in that case, but this is true for all designers, for all creatives of any kind, a network, a community is going to make the difference. And I cannot be unbiased here, but Unpub, the Unpub network, is the best of those in my opinion and experience. And I think in particular, you want the best thing that is going to solve that for you. I really think it's coming to Unpub Prime in March. You don't, and we changed it now. You don't need a table. You don't need the pressure of having to have a game. Just come as a designer, right? Get the 4-day badge. Come talk to people. Come get that network. And just by seeing it, even something like this panel, right? Getting those faces, getting those names, okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. All right, I should just start. And I can always reach out if I have trouble or if I have questions or if something's going on, right? And so I think that's the best way to start getting past that.
I'm Jack Rosetree. You can find me Jack Rosetree on Itch, which is where my weird experimental and RPG stuff is. On screentop.gg is where my board games live, and the easiest way to get a hold of me is actually through Discord. I'm on a lot of servers, so we probably share a server if you're here. And I'm always looking for fun projects to have a hand in.
I'm Sarah from Big Girl Games.
Well, what's your advice, Jack?
Oh, advice. Sorry,
Oh,
no.
I was supposed to have advice. I missed that part. Make trash.
Jack's
and
the one
be
who doesn't
proud.
listen to the rules explanation. Half of the game is like, wait, you never said that.
Make trash and be proud.
Okay. All right, sorry I cut you off. I'm Sarah from Big Girl Games. You can find me on Twitter at Big Girl Games with the numeral 1 at the end. I don't know why it worked out that way. I'm in the process of making a new website, so if you connect with me on Twitter, hopefully I will have that up in the next week or so. And my advice is actually a little bit different. I agree. I do agree with Scoon. I think that community is really great, but I'll tell you the thing that really I thought was one of the coolest things that I've participated in is the tabletop mentorship program. And I always want to give a shout out to those guys, because I have met a ton of people through that program, and it just continues to bring people in and help people gain that confidence that, something like this is awesome and participating in game jams. But if you're not even ready to take that step yet, then join that. And you will be.
Should I go? Okay. You can find me at knifebunny.com. That's where I have like all my social media on all my projects. You can actually find butterflies on there. I need to update its details because I no longer estimate being the 90-minute game. But yeah, and my advice to you is that I want you to approach game design with the same like energy as a child drawing hopscotch like things and chalk on their driveway. Like there is no like minimum threshold of quality or innovation or cleverness that you need to make like a game. You can make it just as a like expression of yourself as with any art form, and I want you to approach it with that in mind. You don't have to learn how to like graphic design in like Adobe or something. You could literally draw on like index cards and make a game that way. It does not have to be like there's no like rules of what you need to do to make a good game. Kids know how to make games. You know how to make games. Just make games. If it's something that calls to you, then please just express yourself that way.
Absolutely. I'm Beth. I am Beth Makes Games on Twitter because when I transitioned, it was the only thing I could think of. And I have a link tree. It's linktr.ee/Beth Makes Games. Angel has one also. It's the exact same, but instead of Beth Makes Games, it's on Birthday Angel because that's her username. I hope it's okay to share this. I'm going to throw it in the chat. But we did a panel on game jams earlier. And one of the things I wanted to do actually is encourage more people to make games. And I feel like the best way to do that is to lead by example. So if you're watching this and you're like, I want to be able to make something like that, like just that jam is literally just so you can like put anything in there. Like I've seen business card games. I've seen, we made bookmark games, Angel and I did. There's a 12-word RPG jam going on right now on Itch. Like you put 12 words in there. Like it doesn't have to be a game. It could just be thinking about something. Like, look outside your window. That's 4 words. You are that thing now. Enjoy. Like there you go. Like I don't think I think it's 11 words, but whatever. Like bye, I guess would be the 12th. But like there's an infinite possibility of games, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start with Gloomhaven. You don't have to start with like, if you started playing Catan was your first game or something like that, you don't have to make something as big. There's a phrase, fail faster. And I liked that for a long time, but I actually kind of hate it now because you do want to get to something faster, but you're not failing because you're succeeding by even trying at all. So I think create faster, maybe. I'm sure that someone's going to come up with an infinitely better thing than that. But just do something. The only way we really get past that initial, I can't do this, is to just do it. Like just sit there, assume it's going to be terrible, and then be delighted by literally anything you come up with. Because the first draft of something is always the worst, and you can improve on it. Like you just play test it one time, you're going to find solutions and things are going to make it better, and that's just going to keep happening. So, but yeah, the game jam, I'm going to be like streaming it if anybody wants to watch. You can see how terrible I am because when I see a game jam, you should have seen me with this theme. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like the last game jam I did, I wasted a whole day. I was so anxious that like I did everything else except for work on games. I wasted a day out of 3 because I gave up. Like I was like, if I'm too busy doing like cleaning the house, like it's not my fault I didn't make a game. So just find literally any way to get past that. Even if it's just playing with a significant other or something, like or a kid or anything, just make something. Yeah.
And I'm Ben Beagle. Again, I'm the mayor of Unpub. You can find stuff about Unpub at the Unpub on Twitter, unpub.net. Nonepub on Twitter is our virtual convention. It's all of the Unpub with none of the physical contact. We will be continuing that. I know Sarah's excited about that. That is not going away anytime soon. As Schoon mentioned, we have our show March 16th through the 19th in Delta Hotel Hunt Valley. We're going to be back at the Horse Hotel. Looking forward to it. If you need to find me on Twitter, I am Some Fat Kid. That's SUM Fat Kid. If that doesn't work and you want to give me a call, 1-800-BEN in theory works. So give it a try. My advice, I'm gonna channel my Shia LaBeouf and just be like, do it. But also, like everybody else has said, find a community, find people, try it. It might be trash, but you did it, and you get to check the box. You get that participation ribbon, and then you get another participation ribbon. You get another participation ribbon, but you're doing it. Now you got all these ribbons to put in your little forager box and decorate the clubhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to add those as an expansion.
All right, and that's all. That's all. So everybody have a great night. Thank you very much to the esteemed panel. Thank you to all of our submitters. Thank you to our chat. Be safe. Have a great night.
Ciao.